Hey, this is Dave Belsky. I'm sitting here with Chris Ball. We have a very special sunset session today. Special because Chris is here, and we're going to actually air part of this at our virtual talent conference next week. Chris, thanks for joining us.
What's up, Dave? Thanks for having me, brother.
Hey, no problem. We got a little sunset left. Hopefully, we have some shimmer
for a little bit over there,
like next 10-15 minutes. So, Chris, you are the CEO and founder of Ball Family Farms. What is Ball Family Farms?
Ball Family Farms is the first vertically integrated social equity company in Los Angeles. We have the largest footprint in Los Angeles with 100,000 square feet, and we are a family-owned and operated business. Yeah, we're in 60 dispensaries currently right now. Majority of them are in Southern California. We are expanding. We're operating at about 20,000 square feet of cultivation right now, so we got another 20,000 so that we can start servicing up in the Bay and San Diego. But right now we're predominantly in Southern California. In Los Angeles.
That's fantastic. The whole state needs your products. And anytime I see a product, 30% THC, great work.
Thank you.
They're your babies, right? You made these strains personally.
Yeah. We do our own genetics in house. We do a lot of our own crossbreeding, a lot of our own tissue culturing. So everything you see from Ball Family Farms is something that we created in our own little secret kitchen with our own little secret ingredients.
Now you have some amazing strain names. Little Karate Kid in there, and nice martial arts theme.
Yes.
How are you able to bring those to market? Did you have to pay someone off?
No. So you know what, man? Like, I got these names. I came up with these names for the nostalgia aspect of them, right? These names come from things that inspired me as a kid growing up. These movies were very, very near and dear to my heart. So when I decided to name my strains after these characters that motivated me, of course, my legal team, I should really say my brother, who's the CFO, he's the very, very paranoid one of the group. I'm kind of like, I'm the outlier, right? I go against the grain, which is why I got my cannabis license in the first place, right? I'm the wild card of the family. So they were like, you can't name it this, people aren't going to understand it. Yeah, IP infringement, someone's going to come sue you, this and that. And I said, well, if they do, that'll be good PR. And we'll deal with that when the time comes. Ironically, what happened was when Daniel LaRusso came out, it kind of lined up with when Cobra Kai, the Netflix series, came out. And I just so happened one of my friends is a producer on that show. I had no idea that he was producing that show. And he's also a smoker, so he got hold of the weed, smoked it, loved it, passed it along to some of the other writers and producers on the show. They loved it and kind of reached out and just gave me their blessing. I mean, even so far that, season 3 is coming up, and they all told me about a new dojo that they're introducing in season 3 and was like, you may want to name one of your strains that. So they gave me the blessing, man. It was kind of like the moon and the stars just kind of lined up, and I didn't have to,
I mean, it's a sign. Like it's a sign
it is.
To keep going.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I got introduced to cannabis when I was about 10, and it was how I identified it was the funny smelling cigarettes my dad would smoke after dinner, so as a kid growing up, my mom smoked regular cigarettes, so I knew what that smelled like, but then my dad, every night after we ate, he'd go over to the couch, he'd pull out this tray, and he'd like roll up these little cigarettes, and then they smelled funny. So I'm like, what is he smoking, right? But I don't know. I guess I didn't have the courage to ask him at that time.
My dad had special outside cigarettes.
There you go. Okay, so same concept. Only my dad smoked it inside. He didn't give a shit, right? So, and then I would smell it again at like family barbecues. I'd smell it at Thanksgiving. We go outside and I'd see grandma smoking the same cigarette as my dad, and then my cousins, my aunts, uncles. So then, as I got older, I started to realize what it was. And being a kid growing up in the 80s, I grew up in the Just Say No era, the Ronald Reagan era. So it became a little bit confusing, as I would go to school and I would hear, and I'd watch those commercials, this is your brain on drugs, and they had the egg frying in the fucking pan and all that.
Oh, I remember.
Right? So
powerful
image. Right. Oh, it would scare the crap out of any kid, right? But then I go home and I see my family and the people I loved and looked up to using this smoking the cigarette, and there didn't seem to be anything wrong with them. Everyone was happy, everyone was smiling. If anything, they just ate a lot more, So, for me, culturally, as I grew up, I didn't feel like there was anything ethically wrong with cannabis, So fast forward to when I turned about 16, my cousin Earl is the neighborhood weed guy, and my cousin Earl always had fresh shirts and Jordans, and he had rings and shit, like he was fresh. So I was like, you know what, man, maybe I'll just try my hand at this weed stuff. Like maybe I could sell some of this and get fresh shoes and shit too. Call my cousin Earl, yo, let me get an ounce. Gives me an ounce, kind of teaches me how to break it down, and I completely just screwed it up. Like I think I probably sold half of it and gave the other half away. My business acumen had not set in at that point.
Probably like 10 gram eighths and stuff.
Yeah, man, I think I was selling like $5 grams or something. I don't remember. This was a long time ago. I don't want to age myself right now immediately, but it was a long time ago. So I kind of put it down. Once I graduated from high school, my parents told me they couldn't afford to send me to college. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to junior college. But I knew I was on my own once I graduated. My parents made it very clear, like, that's it, our job is done. So I called my cousin Earl back and I said, yo, let's run that back. Let me try this again. But this time I took it a lot more serious because I knew I wanted to go to college and I wanted to play football. Those were my dreams. I wanted to go to the NFL and do that. So I got another ounce, but this time, I was a little bit more mature. My business acumen set in, and I was able to sell weed out of my backpack to put myself through school. So that's when my distribution acumen kind of set in, right? Got my scholarship, wound up getting a full ride scholarship to Berkeley, play football at Berkeley. So then I put it down. Don't need it anymore, right? Graduate from Berkeley, go into training camp with the 49ers. Everything's going great. Get cut, and then get sent over to Europe. Play a year in Europe, then get sent over to Canada. Now, once I arrived in Canada, in Vancouver, this is where it kind of happened again, right? Because Canada,
weed's everywhere.
It's the Mecca, right? Yeah. A buddy on my team, his girlfriend's brother had a grow. Now, at this point, I'd never seen weed grow from seed to sale. I had only been a middleman. I was only getting my weed from cousin Earl. I never knew where it came from, any of that stuff. Once I got to Canada and I was finally able to see the weed go from clone to veg to harvest, I was fascinated. I was like, that's it. This is it for me. This is what I want to do. So in the off season in Canada, prices over there were extremely cheap. So in the off season, we would use our football credentials to hop the border in Bellingham and traffic weed all the way down to Los Angeles, right? So we pull up to the border, trunk full of weed, wave our football credentials at the guards at the border. Oh, hey, you just going? Yeah, I'm going home for the weekend. Going to go see my mom or whatever.
It's easier to get to the border then.
Very simple back then, right? Drive 18 hours, through Seattle all the way down to LA. Drop the weed off, sell it all at about $3,500. I was buying it for like $8. Leave the money at home. Drive back up to Canada. Cross the border again. Hey, coming back. Oh, great game last week, Chris. Good job. All that shit. So that went on for about 2 years. Once I finished over in Canada, I came back to LA, and I still had my Canadian connects out there. So it just became a thing of, now that I'm done playing, the Canadians would then just drop it off to me in LA. They were in charge of the distribution, of the logistics at that point. And because I had been dealing with them for so long and I was getting it for so cheap, I was able to undercut the Los Angeles market and make a very good name for myself. I became known as the football player with the weed, right? And I was getting all that British Columbia weed from up in Canada. I got really big, and finally the feds, got wind and caught up with me. So in 2010, I caught my indictment. And so I was looking at a 10-year mandatory minimum. I pled out for 3 years, signed my deal, did my time, came out, and tried to rehabilitate myself. Got a job. I was working for about 3 or 4 years while I was on probation. And as soon as I got off probation, bro, do not ask me why I did this, but as soon as I got off of probation, I walked out of the courtroom. My case was in San Diego. I drove up to Los Angeles and spent all the money I had saved working on a 14 light grow. And the rest is fucking history from there, bro. Like, I burnt up plants, I would say,
like a 215 era.
Like it was a 5,000 square foot warehouse in Van Nuys, and my boy, he owned it, right? He wanted to go back to Chile. So he's like, yo, give me a certain amount of money and buy me a plane ticket back home, and you could keep the grow. Now, I didn't know shit about growing at this point besides what I had learned up in Canada. So this was in 2014. Bro, I must have burnt up plants for a good year, just not knowing what the hell I was doing. But I knew if I could get the hang of this, I would be onto something, right? I could just trap my own packs. Remember, social equity, none of that shit's even on the horizon, right? I'm 4 years early. Burnt up plants for about a year. 2015 came around. I finally got decent. I was able to move some weed, to my Prop D boys. Yeah. 2016, I got really good. You know what I mean? I kind of figured it out. It just clicked. So for the next 2 years, I was just serving all the Prop D shops until one of my partners in 2018 was like, yo, there's a new license called the social equity license. I was like, what's that? They're like, oh, they give that to guys with felons, convicted drug offenders. I was like, yeah, right, get the fuck out. Like, there's no way they're gonna give me a license. He's like, no, bro, I'm serious. Like, it's for people like you should check it out. So sure enough, man, I go down to City Hall, check it out. Everything's legit. I fill out the paperwork. About 2 months later, bro, I got an email talking about congratulations, Mr. Ball, you got a license.
Wow.
That's how Ball Family Farms was born, bro.
Well, I mean, so on the social equity front, first of all, fucking A, amazing story. I'm sorry. And you bring that story, and I know, part of what you're doing is you're filming a documentary, talking about kind of your whole cannabis story and more in the day-to-day, and where you're now, and I think you have such an amazing story to tell that so many people connect to. And, thank you for sharing it here today. There's a lot of publicity about social equity licenses not working out, and people not being ready to do anything with them or getting taken advantage of, and obviously it can work. I think you had a brain for it, and you've been growing cannabis at scale, and knew what you were doing in that capacity. But what are the challenges with social equity program right now as it's written? Yeah,
bro. Great question. I get asked this question a lot, and the fact of the matter is, bro, is that the social equity program and the how it's set up is broken. I'm a unicorn. I'm a guy who has a college degree. I have some sort of higher learning education.
One of the best schools in the world,
right? So when I went through the social equity process, bro, it was grueling. The verbiage in that contract or in that licensing application, and I graduated from a very prestigious school. I couldn't understand half of that shit. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't know anything about MEPs. I didn't know anything about planning and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, ADA compliance. I didn't know anything about that. I was a trap guy. I would call Julio, my boy down the street, who was an electrician. I'd go get this guy who I knew, was a contractor. We put some shit together, and my grow was running. So, even with that part, the city and the state for these social equity applicants, if you're social equity, that means you've been disenfranchised, right? That means you're low income, right? So you don't have a lot of money, first of all. You live in a zip code where it's been disenfranchised by the war on drugs, meaning it's pretty fucked up over there. You know what I'm saying? So
incarceration
rates, all that stuff, right? Yeah. So how are these people supposed to get through a licensing process without any help? I make this parallel all the time. When I got my scholarship to Berkeley, if they would have just admitted me to the school and not given me a scholarship check, not house me, give me a place to live, not give me access to tutors to help me with my studies, not give me priority registration, I would have flunked out of school. There's no way that I don't have the resources to be successful. Great, you admitted me to the school, but you didn't give me any resources to be successful. And that's what's wrong with the program right now. They're giving out the license, but there's no resources to be successful. There's no mentorship program. There's no, they're not giving guys like me, like a guy like me who's been through the process and I know how to get through it. Why don't you give me a tax break to go incubate someone? Right. You know what I'm saying? Why don't you give me some sort of incentive to bring another social equity applicant on board?
Come with the grant. Give me the license.
Anything. Where's the financial aid for these applicants? Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's broken in that sense. Luckily for me, I had that education, and because I had shoebox money all these years, I was low income. I wasn't filing taxes because I didn't need to. I lived a cash life. Yeah. But for the rest of these applicants, that's where the problem lies. That's why it's not working. They don't have. When I looked at that application, I said, I need to go get someone from the city to help me through this. So I went and found a woman and gave her a piece of my business to help me. You know what I'm saying? I was smart enough to do that. You know, she then taught me how to go down to the city, and this is what we need. This is how you go through planning. This is the licensed contractor you need to hire, not your boy Julio.
It wasn't made easy. You had to go figure it out.
No, I had to go figure it out. So that's what's wrong, with the process as it stands right now.
I think it's 2021. We just welcomed in a new administration. 2020 was a crazy year in so many different ways, and hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel now.
Hopefully it's going to get better.
Yeah, it's going to get better.
It's going to get better.
It's going to get better.
Out of our mouths into the universe.
You're sure it's going to get better?
It's going to get better. I'm sure.
But so much has happened around people being frustrated at police, and I think that no one's really talked about head on how the war on drugs specifically affected how communities of color felt towards the police department. Mm-hmm. Right, disproportionately, and how that's rooted in what we've seen explode in society over the last 6-8 months.
Yeah.
From your vantage point, like how much has the war on drugs contributed to the distrust between the communities of color and police?
I mean, it's in my opinion, bro, it's the main cause, right? I think, and I'm a deep thinker. I went to I was a sociology major at Berkeley, and Berkeley's very liberal. Berkeley's very liberal, so I'm a very deep thinker, and I'm always watching and thinking, if this is in front of me, if this is what you want me to focus on, what are you really doing behind me, right? So I've gone down this rabbit hole, bro, so many times, and I believe that the drugs were put in our community to disrupt our families. It was put there to break apart our families, to put our fathers in jail, you know what I mean, so that we would come from these broken homes so that they could screw up our community. And that's exactly what it did. And growing up, I would see my uncles, I'd be playing on the street, I see my cousins and uncles get their asses whooped by the cops, you know what I'm saying? Fortunately for me, my mom was smart enough to get me out of there, before it really got bad. My mom took me out of the inner city when I was about 8 years old and moved me to a suburb, and put a football in my hand. I believe that, the social equity program and the fact that now cannabis is now legal, I believe it will kind of give people of color an opportunity to kind of rehabilitate themselves from what's happened to them, for a guy like myself. If it wasn't for this program, my family wouldn't be doing as well as they are right now, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't be able to help the other families that I'm able to help by even hiring. I have to hire a certain amount of individuals who live within a 10-mile radius of my facility, to qualify for my social equity license every year. So those things like that are ways that I can kind of pay it forward, and we can try to help some of these families in these communities.
Wow, I mean, what a story. I mean, I appreciate you sharing it with me and with everybody.
Appreciate you letting me tell it, man.
Chris Ball Family Farms, thank you very much.
Peace. Cut.